Hey guys, it's Ethan from Do It Yourself Survival Solutions. Thanks for being patient and waiting. I know it's been, 5 or 6 days now since I started the site and I haven't put anything up yet. So obviously from the introduction, this is going to be a multi-tool review, and the multi-tool in question today is the Berkley Mini Multi-Tool. Now before we get into the review, I just want to talk a little bit about multi-tools. In fact, I'm just going to drop the price right now. I paid $4.88 for this multi-tool. For the amount of capabilities you can get for $5, you ought to do it. This is a fantastic introductory multi-tool for someone that does not own one. And once you start getting multi-tools, you're not going to be able to live without them. One thing that you do have to take into consideration though with your multi-tool is, especially if it's like a subcompact one like this little guy here, there are some tasks you do not want to put this through, otherwise you will break it and then you'll be out $5 or $30 or however many dollars you decide to spend on your multi-tool if you want to get the top of the line Victorinox or the bottom of the line Walmart brand. I'm going to discuss a couple of problems that this one had. In fact, I'll talk about them right after we start on the outside and work our way in. I don't want to sidetrack myself any more than I have to. From the outside, you start out with this ruler here. It's got both English and metric on it. English increments are 1 and 4, although I'm pretty sure that's 2 right there. 3 is probably right there, but they're not marked. They could have done a better job on that, but overall, not bad. It's helpful. So the total length here is 5 inches from end to end, so that's also a good reference point. On the other side, you have increments of 1 through 4 on the centimeter side, and 8 through 11 with a mystery mark up here, which is 12, and then it extends on for about another ½ centimeter to bring it to a total of about 12.5 centimeters for the ruler out here. Now, while we're here, this gets to the point of where you have to know the limitations of what you can do with your tools, and that applies to pretty much any tool you have, not just a multi-tool. If you look right about there, you can see that that's a little bit deformed, and what happened was, as I was testing this, I've been carrying this for about a week and a half. All the gear I review for you guys is going to go through at least a week of testing, and it's going to get tested pretty hard. I was cutting through some very sizable copper wire with the wire cutters, which by the way suck, and it cut it did, but it also bent the hell out of this little tab. And these little tabs up here are what you use to apply your pressure, because they're pretty much the locking points into these little grooves up here. And if you over torque these, yeah, they're going to bend. From the design, I don't think they're going to break off. They're going to bend in, which is probably a good thing, because if you're in an emergency, it's better to have it bend in and you not be able to close it, and then you toss the multi-tool after the emergency if you have to, if it's really that destroyed and out of commission. These will cut through a single piece of 15 amp rated wire, but you're probably going to break your multi-tool in the process, or at least damage it anyway. I was able to fix mine, but it's a little bit deformed. Has a little bit of a lockup issue on that side, but nothing much, nothing major. These points here are adjustable. I'll speak to that later on. The pliers themselves are actually pretty good. They're very thin and can get into some very small places. I've had a lot of success with picking screws out of a computer that I was taking apart and using for scrap parts, basically, just to get my video computer up and running. Pliers are pretty good. They have a very prominent point here. I'll give you a little contrast so you can, oops, wrong way, so you can kind of see. Oh, you can see the shadow back there anyway. They come together very, very nicely at the tips. That would probably be good for removing things like slivers. If you're going to pack this in a first aid kit, that would be a very good use for this multi-tool too. The gripping serrations up in the head of the pliers are very adequate. They seem to work pretty well. No complaints there. I would just, again, getting back to the wire cutters, I would not recommend you use these at all. You're probably going to damage your multi-tool if you do. Moving on down to these pivot points again here, they work pretty well, and the best part about these is they are adjustable if you have a star driver, which is a feature that does not usually come on really cheap multi-tools. There are plenty of other ones out there. Even the Winchesters don't have these on some of their models, I believe. And the Winchesters retail for about $10 at Walmart. Getting into the actual tool sets, there's only one single stack tool in the tool section here, and that's the Phillips driver, which is actually quite nice. Has a nice long, sorry, going out of frame, nice long shank to it. Does a pretty good job. It's not one of those two-dimensional ones like you find on some of the new Gerbers either. All these other tools in here are double stacked, and because they are double stacked and you paid $5 for this multi-tool, you're going to have dual deployment on pretty much all of them from my experience. Your multi-tool might be a little bit different than mine. This was the third one I picked on the shelf because the other ones were just had a little bit of schmag or something growing up here. I think it was probably just lithium grease or something like that, but this was the cleanest one. You might have to sort through and find a good clean one for yourself too. They come in a blister pack, so you should have no problem seeing through it and picking out which one you think looks the best. Scissors are spring-loaded, and they're pretty good. They're not wicked sharp, but they are sharp enough to cut through paper, some light cardboard, and even aluminum cans, as you'll see later on with a project we're going to do. So pretty good job on the scissors. Over here you have your can opener, bottle opener slash jeweler's screwdriver, but the jeweler's screwdriver, if you can see, is kind of square on the tip, and last time I checked, flathead screws had a slot in them. So good luck with that. However, if you have a grinder or a file or some way to sharpen this down a little bit and give it a little bit of a better profile, I think that will probably work adequately for adjusting things like sunglasses and other stuff like that. Moving over to the other side here, we have the awl or shank or scribe, whatever you want to call it, and your nail file integrated into one. And I have to say they did a very good job on this tool, or this tool combination rather. This is a very sharp little awl, and I have found it works very well for the tasks I've used it on. Also, I believe this is called a nail file on their packaging, and it's definitely way more heavy duty than a nail file. I've used this for grinding down some aluminum and some other things in projects that you will see in the future. I found that this is a very useful tool set combination, and good job Berkley on it, very good job. Moving along again, you have your primary Phillips driver. Primary flathead driver, pardon me. This is pretty good too, actually. I've done some minor prying tasks with it as well, and it's held up pretty good. I would just not go overboard with it, otherwise you're going to bend it, and then if you bend it, you're not going to get it back in. Then you're going to have problems and maybe possibly be out $5 if you don't have a star driver to take this apart and pull it out and try to bend it back. One other little problem with this screwdriver is, if you can see, it's a little bit on the thick side at the tip, but again, if you have a grinder or a file or something like that, you can file that down without too much of a problem. It has a nice little chisel profile to it, so it should be pretty easy to grind down so you can get it into more narrowly slotted screws. But again, overall, pretty impressive, not too bad for a little $5 multi-tool. Now, one of the things that really plays with my emotions on this is the saw, because the saw is extremely sharp. It's pretty good. I really am impressed by this saw, actually. The downside is it doesn't give you really any real estate. You're looking at about a 1.25" blade length, and I have done some sawing with it just to try out the effectiveness of it, and it'll swipe through a pencil in just a couple of passes, among other things. So it's a really good little saw, but realistically, how is this going to benefit you in like a major survival issue? Probably not that well. I mean, you could maybe cut through a couple of saplings or something like that and use them for whatever. But I think the original design of this saw was intended for cutting through bone, to be perfectly honest with you. And I know that might gross some people out, but keeping in mind that Berkley makes things like this for fishermen, I would assume that this is probably for cutting the tail off of a fish. That would be my guess. And it would probably work pretty well with that. Haven't cut through any bones lately, but if I do, I'll keep you posted. Next up, and finally, oh wait, actually before we get to the knife, let's talk about this lanyard loop here. This lanyard loop is permanently deployed, doesn't come out. It's always out. It's kind of useful. If you're going to carry this on your keychain, you're probably going to want to tighten this up. I have mine nice and loose just so I can kind of play with it, you know, throw it around, whatever. Stuff like that. I'll get to that in a little bit too, actually. You're probably going to want to tighten this up. Your lanyard loop sort of does flop around, but the good news is if you're carrying it on a keychain, you can move it towards the center, so that way it'll sit balanced on your keychain, and you don't have to worry about it kind of being off to one side and maybe deploying and being open and flopping around on your keys and being annoying. If you want to put like some 550 cord on it to help you get it out of your pocket, you can just shift it over to the side. I'm sure if you put some Loctite or something like that on here, would probably go a long way to securing it and keeping it in one place. The other problem I ran into with the lanyard loop is if you're using the scissors and this is forward, it's going to mess up your thumb a little bit when you're cutting. So just one thing to keep in mind if you're going to be using the scissors, which is try to keep your lanyard loop as far back as possible. And getting to the knife finally. Fresh out of the box, this knife is about as sharp as a bowling ball. You don't have a lot of real estate on it, but it's actually not too bad when you work it over a little bit. Almost has a little bit of a hollow, almost a little bit of a hollowness to the grind. I think it's so small, it's hard to tell exactly, but I think it's got a little bit of a hollowness to the grind here, which doesn't really do you any good because the relief edge out of the box sucks anyway. But if you take some time to reprofile it, probably work out pretty well for you. It's not, I don't know what the steel type is. I did poke around on the Berkley website for a little while and try to find out. I'm guessing it's pretty much the same quality steel as everything on here is constructed. I don't think the knife is anything different or special to give you better edge retention or anything like that. Pretty much just mystery metal. I think it might be 420 at best, maybe. I don't know. Probably not even that much actually for what this is, for the price on this. But overall, it's a halfway decent little knife. I've used it for a lot of little cutting tasks, going through cardboard, stuff like that. It's held up pretty well. You do have to touch it up a little bit more frequently than, I don't know, a higher quality multi-tool knife. But overall, not too bad. A couple other little things to mention about this is there are no locking mechanisms on here per se. They do have these little flaps back here that they had to cut in order for the tools to really deploy, but they also do help kind of lock things in. I'm hitting that kind of well, and it does kind of prevent it from sliding out on you. One other safety thing I'd like to mention too is if you're using your knife or your saw, more realistically probably your knife, do not use it like this. Sorry, I'm going out of frame. Do not hold your knife like this. Always make sure it's closed this way and keep your fingers back a few inches or a few centimeter, I guess. So that way, if for whatever reason this knife does decide to fold down, it's not going to fold down on your finger. Because there is some pretty good resistance here, but it's not fantastic. But like I said again, you're paying $5 for this guy, and you do get a lot of capabilities for that $5 that you pay, I think. It's a lot better than not having anything on you, that's for sure. So this would be probably a really good option for maybe something you carry in your backpack as a backup multi-tool. Put it in a first aid kit. Keep it in your car. If you're brand new to multi-tools, you know, this weighs a whole whopping 2 ounces even. So you could probably just carry it around in your pocket all day, put it on your keychain, whatever. Like I said, it's fully adjustable, so you can adjust the tension on the tools, you can adjust the tension on the plier head as well too, or on the levers for the plier head. Just to wrap it up, the dimensions of this multi-tool, like I said, are 2.2 ounces. It's about 2.5 inches long. It is 7/8 of an inch wide that way, and about a ½ inch deep. That's pretty much it. That is the Berkley Mini Multi-Tool. Hope you guys enjoy this review, and stay tuned for more stuff to come. Alright, thanks guys. Take care.